Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Folks, it is good to have you aboard today. And my name is Seth Cressman, and I'm joined here once again with so many faces. I'm going to let everybody go ahead and introduce themselves and create their own chaos. So go for it, you guys.
Thanks, Seth. This is Ben Brayshaw. And Seth, your voice is definitely hurting. He's struggling today a little bit. You feeling okay?
You know what? It is the season of camps, and one of those happened to be a football camp this last weekend that I didn't realize it, but yeah, I did a lot of yelling at my kid, urging him to go get it. Yeah, and then you follow that up with an MLS soccer game. What else are you going to do?
And I'm Dan Mickelon. No yelling for me, so hopefully the voice is coming across clear.
You sound good.
With that Massachusetts accent ringing through.
Well, that's permanent. That is permanent.
Dan, you're going to have to carry the show for us today. I get that feeling.
Yeah, and last but not least is Anthony Scola, and I guess I've been told to speak up, so I don't have any excuse for why my voice might not be loud and clear. So
you have also been told to just say Tony, since that's what everybody knows you as, anyways. Apparently, your wife, said
my mother.
There's no Anthony. Yeah,
they got a bunch of names for Tony. We just only use that one on the show.
I was afraid my mother might be listening, and she would not recognize me otherwise.
Well, I'm excited about our show, guys. I mean, I think this show is going to be interesting. I'm really glad that Dan and Tony are here today specifically to talk about what we have in front of us, which is the 12 biggest pitfalls in retirement. And we have 12 financial-based, very important, and if you are looking at retirement, thinking about retirement, are in retirement, these are 12 things that you really need to be aware of and be ready for, because any one of them can send retirement in a tailspin and really create financial heartache, financial devastation. It could be any number of those things. And we also have one kind of interesting non-financial scenario, which we have brought to the table, which I think we'll finish up with, which I think is really, really important for a lot of people. And we'll get to that. But before we jump into that, we have money in the news.
First up this week, folks, it's all about Tokyo. Guess what? The Olympics are scheduled, and they're going to apparently still stay on track. There will be an Olympics this year, but apparently this is going to be running to the tune of around a $20 billion deficit off of what they were anticipating as far as being able to, get the locals and everybody there into these arenas and pay for these tickets and finance all of the infrastructure that they've been pouring into in Tokyo.
I'm actually really... Listen, I know everyone's running scared, but if you want to go to the Olympics and contract COVID and that's your risk and you want to be there, let them be there. Why go under, why choose to make the loss the loss? I mean, there's a lot of people who have spent their entire life trying to get there. And, there's people that have been coaches or aunts or uncles that have been cheering them on and supporting them or whatever. That this is a big deal. This is a global event. I mean, quarantine in, quarantine out, whatever you got to do it. But let people go. Let them enjoy the time. Lock down the Olympic Village. And
yeah, I think they're doing that. I mean, I think hopefully all the athletes that are qualified are still going to do it and, realize their life's dreams and all that effort and work they've been putting in forever, and their families supporting them. This is definitely their moment. It feels like it's a shame, though, it's going to be in front of an empty stadium. All of that, the viewership and the camaraderie and the nationalism and the pride for your country. it's going to be a TV only experience.
Well, I think about football or any of the number of sports I've not watched for the last 12 months in my individualized protest. But that being said, hearing that they're simulating fan noise and stuff like that, and because for the football players, the pro football players, I saw one interview, they were saying it's almost like an abbreviated practice, with it.
Well, and as it was pointed out before, not to ruffle any feathers of any other sport fans out there, but Florida was one of the first states to come out of quarantine, so to speak. And you look, they won the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup.
The fan support matters. It does. Remember hearing a lot of the Celtics players talking about the return to the court. It was literally one night they had a game in front of nobody, and the next night the stadium was full, or 50% or whatever the capacity number was. But the players that tell you that there's absolutely an emotional pickup you get, and it picks up the adrenaline and the effort comes out, and it doesn't feel like a practice now that they really feel like they're competing.
Yeah, no, I think. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so many different perspectives. One of them that got highlighted, this by Miss Tobe, said, "We might be better off without the Olympics. At least that would eliminate one risk factor for the spread of the infection." So, I mean, that's definitely one side of the fence that somebody would take, as far as let's just go ahead and not have Olympics and then everybody stay home until everybody's well. There's no, the whole world, right? The whole world needs to make sure that they're okay before we move forward with anything else. That's how I took that. That's not a popular, I'm not saying that's my my perspective, and it's definitely not a popular one, I'm sure.
It's going to be a long time. It's going to be a long wait. But what's interesting, and I think is really the concern driving it locally there in Japan, is that 80% of the population that actually lives there and is about to receive this massive international influx, they don't want it. They clearly, the majority statement is 80% of the population there wants the games canceled.
Whoa, I did not even see that. That's
scary.
That's interesting.
Well,
so once again, we're forcing our agenda on them, I guess.
TV money.
Yeah, because it's definitely the U.S. that has made this whole thing happen, I'm sure.
Well, the expenditure, they got $20 billion spent on this thing already. And, the expectation was, that there's always a massive windfall for the local restaurants and businesses and all the entertainment outlets. And they contributed about $3 billion in sponsorship money. But they've come to realize that that's sunk money, that they will not get any of that back. In fact, even Toyota, who, Japanese company, major U.S. presence, all over the airwaves here as an advertiser, they produced a whole series of, specifically Olympic-related advertisements to air during the shows, but because the local sentiment's so poor, they're scrapping it. They're just going to run their old standard car commercials, with no reference or mention of the Olympics whatsoever.
Yeah, it's really kind of it's actually really sad. And when we were talking about do you want to bring up the women's soccer team? I know you do, so go ahead.
Well, in addition to all that, you have that political aspect, I think, that Ben's referring to. And, those who may have recently seen that the women's U.S. soccer team, usually a powerhouse in events as such, got pretty much had
decimated,
their butts handed to them by the Swedish team, 3-0 loss. And the focus on that was the protest at the beginning, the amount of athletes that kneeled for the anthem, and also a lot of other U.S. athletes who are standing on the podium and using that as a soapbox for
represent somebody
agendas.
else. What the heck? You don't want to stand up for an anthem. You want to kneel. Go somewhere else. You're there representing the country.
Right. Compete under another flag or don't compete.
You know what? If anything, it only makes me appreciate their loss. And I am a huge soccer
Well, oddly
fan.
enough, the reviews on it was that a majority of the U.S. were happy to see them lose after the way they handled the anthem.
When is sports going to figure it out? When are they going to realize, we should just keep our mouth shut and go play our sport? Yeah, watch some hockey, man.
They get out there and play and get into any of this nonsense.
I think the Olympic Committee, they banned the on-podium displays. They said, listen, you have your post-game news conferences, all kinds of opportunities, social media. You can air your concerns there all day long. But when it comes to, on the stage, the acceptance of a medal. They're going to supposedly clamp down on that. I don't know how they do it, but that's what they've rolled out as a regulation.
Yeah, which, pandemic aside, I'm sure that's a part of the reason why there's not really a lot of interest in it this year, is because, I know growing up myself, you look forward to the Olympics. It was only once every 4 years. Now they've staggered it so you at least get an Olympic event every 2 years, but the seasonal is still every 4 years, and a big part of it was national pride.
Folks, this has been Money in the News. You're listening to Money on Tap, and you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info at yourmoneyontap.com. We are today going to be talking about the 12 biggest pitfalls in retirement. This is critical information for you. And you know what? No matter where you're at in any kind of phase in and around retirement, you want to have this information readily available at your fingertips. We're going to cover it for you, and we can't wait to be back. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Money on Tap.
Hey folks, Seth Cressman, Brayshaw Financial Group is our company, and we bring to you Money on Tap. I say we, that's Ben and I. We have a lot of fun doing this show. And one of the things that we love about doing Money on Tap is that our goal for you to have access to the financial planning world. How do we think? What are we doing? What are we talking about? Raising the bar of your financial education. It's so critical. And that's what we're doing here. The other side of this is as well, we're financial planners. If you are looking to work with a financial planner, if you want to have that playbook for you to understand the important things right now and how you're going to get to your goals or how you're going to retire successfully, that's what we're doing as well. If you have $250,000 of investable assets, give us a call. It's free to you, and it is worth your time to pick up that phone and give us a call and discover what complete wealth management looks like. Ben and I are excited about the opportunity to partner with you and give you that financial plan that's going to make the next step so much better understood and get you where you need to go.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info at yourmoneyontap.com. And that's a good place, actually, for us to just say, hey, thank you very much for the people that have been reaching out. We love doing the show for you, and your feedback is amazing. And there's a lot of topics that we cover just because, you know what, that's what you want. And so let us know. We're here to cover the things that are important to you, and also the stuff that we're talking about on a regular basis with our clients. So what would those things be today? We're talking about the 12 biggest pitfalls in retirement. And you know what? We needed to consolidate a list of probably 100, but these are the most important ones. And this is what we're consistently looking out for our clients with and trying to make sure, hey, we got a game plan and we're on track. What are the things that we're going to make sure to understand and maybe not do?
I know that, I know the one pitfall that's not on here, folks, is not calling us. Okay, we got that down. That's not the pitfalls. That's not 1 through 12, but I might consider that.
I try to fall into that pitfall on a regular basis, but sometimes that just doesn't.
People don't always think people always think going somewhere else might not be a pitfall. Okay, so number 1, longevity risk. Before we get going, I want to say one thing. I really think that there's a lot of stuff that we've all experienced in probably the almost 100 years of combined experience that we have together. all of us, right? So
between the four of us, we've got about 250 years combined experience between the four of us.
half of that by Seth, who's 104.
That's, you know what? It's a very, time is relative, right? Yeah.
So
It's dog years.
yeah. So I think there's a lot people can gain from our personal experiences and talking with clients and experiencing people's lives and what's going on. But anyway, so Dan, I'm going to turn longevity risk over to you. I don't know why, but it sounds like a good one.
Hey, why not, right? It's it is the primary concern with everybody we meet.
It should be your primary concern because you are the youngest guy in the room, actually.
But by just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Just a little bit. So I'm going to make sure all that money lasts, But that's what it comes down to. I mean,
'Cause you're all our beneficiary.
Everybody's concern is making sure they have enough money to sustain a lifestyle that they want to have, until they're no longer living and needing that lifestyle. So how do you take all of your accumulated assets and the fruits of a career and stretch them out and make it last over that period of time where regular income, or at least from employment, regular income is no longer in the picture? And it's a significant challenge, and it's something that you absolutely need some professional counseling around. But it's what we do.
I always like the conversation that we have with the client that says, well, everybody in my family has died by 85 or 80 or whatever. And then we wind up getting into their 90s and saying, I don't know what to tell you, but you're doing a good job. And I don't want to tell you not to, right? Just keep doing it. However, you're continuing to make this work. Let's go.
Yeah,
I
think
their secrets, by the way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think I have clients who are in their 90s, and I got a call a while ago that one was going to pass away, and guess what? He had a full rebound and he's fine. I mean, the daughter was crying in the hospital, and she's like, "We don't think he's going to make it through the night," and he's fine. He's home. He's laughing, making jokes. He's like, "Yeah, you all thought I was going to die and get my money," like all that stuff. But
oh my god,
yeah,
that's why he survived. He's going to spend that last nickel and laugh right out.
Yeah.
You can't have any of it.
Well, and that's a risk. They say the certainties in life are death and taxes, but the challenge is that we don't know when that first one is going to take place. So
I think that's the thing, right? Everyone plans for some sort of life expectancy, and they tell us, this is how long this is. But as planners, we have to plan for like almost an indefinite period, right? 110, 120 years. I mean, we could be that person who has that one client that lives longer than anyone ever expected to live.
Oh, geez, I remember years ago, quite a few years ago, back when we worked together in the previous life, we had a speaker come in front of a group of advisors claiming that in the not-so-distant future, life expectancy was going to reach 140.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Wow. So I think it helps if your name's Methuselah. That definitely needs to be on the information we gather first off. Folks, we're going to move on to number 2 here, which is interest rate risk. You know what, Tony, this is a good one for you because I know how much you're watching those interest rates.
Thanks a lot, Seth. That's great. I do.
So honestly, it's not the one I want to talk about. So
right. So I appreciate you sending it this way, but yeah. A lot of people like to get into more fixed return type of investments in retirement. They're more afraid of keeping what they have than having it grow. And going back to longevity, that's the challenge. If you don't get the growth, you've got to watch the spending and make sure that money lasts. But with interest rates, and we're all aware that they've been extremely low for a very long time.
Yeah.
You really can't rely on it. You can't even use it to provide just drawing interest for income alone. You're barely making enough to sometimes even pay the expenses in the account that they're in.
Well, I think the biggest correlation issue that comes to mind for me when I look at this topic is just the idea that bonds, they're paying, you buy a bond today paying 0.5%. Next thing you know, the Fed says rates are going to go up in 2023. The rates go up to 2 or 3%, and all of a sudden the bond you own at paying 0.5% or 1% is worth less. That's real. To me, that's the most difficult and problematic investing problem, I think, that has to do with every diversified portfolio staring every client in the face. You look at a diversified portfolio, it's 60% stocks and it's 40% bonds. And if you don't know what we're talking about, give us a call. But you got this 401k and you're saying, "Oh, I'm diversified." Well, you're diversified into bonds potentially, that either are too high of risk because they're high yield bonds, because safer bonds, have a lower income to them. And then all of a sudden you got these bonds paying virtually nothing. And pretty much based on everything the Fed's telling us, they're just going to go down in value. Now, if a market crashes, they're going to go up in value. But what are you going to do?
And I think it's particularly a problem when you talk about asset allocation, and it's kind of some of the more modern tools that have come out. And we all remember 8 or 10 years ago, everyone was rolling out these target date funds that had these locked in preset allocations, driven by your age or the expected date of liquidation, that it's constantly shifting money into bonds, away from the equity market. And, we describe it as an anchor dragging down your portfolio, which is what it is at this point. And
especially if you're trying to make up, you haven't really been saving into that program towards your retirement all this time. It's like maybe you're just doing some catch-up contributions and really trying to get back on track, right? That's one of those common mistakes where people are just thinking that this is a tool that's going to accomplish their goals, and it's not designed for that.
It's too simple. Say, well, I'm going to retire about 2035, 2045. You pick your date, you buy the fund. If that's what you consider to be planning for retirement, you need to give us a call.
Well, there's way more than 1,000. I could probably say there's 100,000, but there's a ton of lawsuits out there on these target date funds because either someone was too conservative or too aggressive based on what the asset allocation was supposed to be or whatever. You don't know what the fund manager's really thinking behind the plate. He might think that you should be in 72% bonds, but it turned out that if you had been in 68, you would have done better, and that whatever. I mean, there's all these problems around it. But I think that rolls right into number 3, which is in the inflationary risk issue, which just compounds the problem. When you think about interest rate risk and then you think about inflation risk, right? That if interest rates go up and they're going to go up and you're going to buy a house, well, now your mortgage is going to be higher. Because you're going to pay a higher interest rate.
If you own a fixed rate instrument, whether that's a bond or a bank instrument, and you said, well, this looks like a reasonable rate, it's nice and safe, you put your money into it, and then in the meantime, and you're committed to a time schedule there. Now taxes went up, cost of living went up, inflation's driving it. Well, that's a real problem.
Yeah, and they're just compounding each other. And I think when you really drive it, there's conversation everywhere about inflation. There's not a newspaper out there. There's not a radio show not talking about it. We've done shows on inflation, how it impacts you, who it is. Look back at our shows if you haven't heard those. But in reality, inflation risk is a real deal. You can't tell me that you're not paying 30 to 50% more at the pump a year ago than you are today. That's real inflation. And honestly, I think the thing is that, the CPI and the Fed and everybody, they really don't articulate or account for oil and gas at the level in which it grows to the inflationary number the way it should, because it is everything, right? It's our travel, it's our heat, it's our delivery of all the goods and services we buy. It is at the core of every inflationary event, and we don't give it nearly the coverage or the... Anyways, I can go on forever on that. But go ahead, Tony. You had something to say? I'm sorry.
Well, actually, you touched exactly on that, and I was going to say that the first thing that had popped into mind, and I think everybody noticed, was the rise in the fuel costs and how that's really going to impact it. And as you mentioned, when you're more on a fixed income or dealing with low interest rates, and all of a sudden the cost of goods and services, your day-to-day, your cost of living expenses increase by, percentages that are far greater than you expected, it really creates a bad situation, especially in retirement.
Yeah, I would say, and I would honestly topple on number 2 again a little bit to say, owning a bond, the only thing you don't want to hear is rates are going to go up, because that means what you own is old and not as valuable. And, so in stocks, hey, someone's going to raise the yield on their stock. Well, that's usually going to make the stock go up, and so in the bond world, it is the exact opposite.
That brings us to, number 4, which is adult children. I think it's fair to say that every parent wants their child to become an adult, and to be able to make that transition successfully. But adult children living at home is one of those places where people just, they didn't really anticipate that being an expense for their retirement. Let's just call it what it is. And there's several examples. The Millionaire Next Door. If you have ever taken a look at this book, it's good reading for anybody that wants to take a study of how successful people have done what they've done with their money, and continue to do that. And one of those lessons in that is about adult children, and maybe not even the adult children that are living at home still with them, but also just kind of continuing to feed the adult children finances. It's not like it's almost like a pension that some people have put into place for their kids. Well, the successful people continuously do not do this. It's just one of those, and I've had the conversation with many, many people, and it's a tough one, and it's sometimes painful, but if that's you, it is a decision. It's a decision that can be made. And ultimately, the benefit being that your children live much happier, healthier lives because they, figure out how to do this on their own.
Yeah, I've had a number of clients who have, and adult children is not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, we kind of, it's like, oh, well, so-and-so is just not kind of come out of the basement yet. They're still playing Atari.
Commodore 64.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one scenario, right? But there's also the adult child who's special needs, right? So there's a whole nother piece of this too. And I think I think it's not necessarily a sarcastic like Johnny won't get out of the basement scenario. There's a lot of people who are caring for children who are special needs, and that's something that adds a whole level of complexity and special needs trusts and stuff like that. We have attorneys that handle that kind of stuff. But there's adult children who just kind of have they've kind of settled in. Mom still does the laundry. She makes dinner. And they work. They work and they save their money too. It's just the way it is, but it becomes a cost. I did have one client though that the adult children were not living with them, but they were still a massive expense. He paid for an entire kitchen remodel at $40,000 for one of them. And I mean, he's a wealthy guy, but he was choosing to spend down his retirement funds. And, he was like, I'd rather give it to them while they're alive. But he's running dangerously low because of these massive financial decisions that he's done, buying houses, doing this, doing that. I mean, it's like, I'm like, you can't, I mean, you don't have to give it all to them now. I mean, you're going to be asking them for a place to live. They're going to be like, sorry, Dad, you should have prepared for that.
Yeah, you can move into the kitchen you bought. Yeah.
And more common, I see it. And then people don't say, like you said, it may not be the child living in the basement or funding $40,000 renovations and things like that. But I very commonly doing budgets for clients see adult children still on the family cell phone bill plan. You're paying $250, $350 a month because they've got 3-4 adult children in their 30s, 40s, etc., still on mom and dad's cell phone plan. That's monthly expense.
Yeah, no, it adds
up.
It does. You're totally right, and that's a normal. Number 5. I mean, these kind of family. This is another family item. I think and this is more of a to a heart kind of concern issue, but we've crossed this. How many times have we crossed this as an issue? Either right before retirement, kids move out of the house, right after retirement, a divorce happens. And that is a very, very devastating financial event for a lot of people through a very hard time. And I mean,
for a lot of different reasons.
For a lot of different reasons, right? It's not just because the kids moved out. Some people say they're disconnected or this, that, whatever their story is. It's still just a financial devastation, and it requires a very delicate process to manage through this and get it to be a successful outcome. It really does take, I would say, a lot more delicate. I'm not really kind of lacking the adjective, but it's a hand-holding kind of like, this is what we're going to do here, this is what we're going to do there, because there's a lot of moving pieces, and then you're also picking up a lot of emotional pieces through that event. And that's very difficult, and we work with a lot of people in that area.
That's what I was thinking myself, too, is that, you really need a team to separate the financial piece from the emotional piece as well, because it's very difficult to see when you're on that side of it.
Yeah, and I have an attorney we work with, and we've worked with him a number of times for people who have gone through divorce, Christians and non-Christians, and trying to manage that well is a very complicated scenario. He's actually very talented. I hope to have him on the radio at some point. And if you're struggling with something like that, I mean, we're happy to talk to you in generic form and just kind of figure out if you need legal help or financial help. That's definitely a place to come.
I would say one of the outcomes that I've really struggled with in working with newly divorced, soon to be divorced, is a mom that has been staying at home with these kids and really has been the primary caregiver, looking at this next several years and the kids still having needs and being told, even by other planners and other people, that you have to go back to work. Like, this is not an option. And to be able to solve those scenarios for them and give them an option to, have more of a runway, that's been one of the greatest gifts I feel like we've been able to accomplish for some of those people that have been going into those divorce scenarios. So
yeah. At that time, if you can take one thing off the plate, being the financial picture, it's just a tremendous weight lifted and allows them to deal with all the other emotional family aspects that come with that.
Yeah. Folks, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Now, I know we just talked about a couple of difficult things there. There's going to be some things that you do not want to miss. Trust us, there's going to be a lot more to this show than you would even possibly imagine. We're talking about the 12 biggest pitfalls in retirement. We'll be right back.
Call us today at 855-226-8551 and get your free consultation with Ben Brayshaw or Seth Krussman or any one of our partners and find out what's going on in your plan, your estate plan, your financial plan, or what you're planning at all, if nothing. Get it fixed, get it right, get it done today. Give us a call at 855-226-8551.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And today we are talking about the 12 biggest pitfalls in retirement. We've covered longevity risk, interest rate risk, inflation risk, adult children, divorce. You can find this podcast out there in any podcast venue if you're listening to us on the radio, so don't worry, it's still there, or just go to our website, it's there for you. Next up, though, we have elder fraud. And just to start the conversation, this is another one of those that is so sad when we see it, and sometimes really hard to detect even what's going on.
I'd like to run with this really quick because I had this happen recently to a client. She's a widowed lady, older. She called me and she said, "Hey, I'm going to have some money to send you. I'm selling a timeshare. It's going to be great. So I'm going to make a bunch of money off of it. And it's in Mexico. It was where the timeshare was." So long and short of it, I'm talking to her and we're having some conversations, and she's telling me that she has to send the tax to the attorney, the law firm in Mexico, and she's working with an attorney here in the U.S. and but they have to send the tax first before they can send the money out of the country because they won't, in fear of not collecting the tax and so forth. I said, whoa. You haven't received anything and they want you to send them more money. Her attorney didn't do the work to verify the firm. All the pieces just sounded horrible. I literally said, don't send a penny, because she was looking for money out of her account to offset the taxes. And I think she's out a few $1,000s, and she's dealing with her attorney because of his failure to properly do his due diligence. But I told her, I said, listen, you need to get your daughter on the phone. We need to figure this out, and don't send another penny. Your attorney should be able to verify whether you would actually send those taxes to me. I mean, there's like 20 questions going on in my head, and it turned out it was total fraud, and she would have been out a ton of money hoping to get a very large payout. Now, those assets are very valuable down there, and there are companies buying these things out, but this was not one of them. And so the story was legitimate. All the events around what people are doing are legitimate. She just got a solicitation. She knew these things were being solicited, so it wasn't a surprise to her to have gotten it. But I'm just really thankful she called me and didn't, needed the extra cash to accomplish that. But, her family was up and down thanking me left and right for what we had done, which is great,
Yeah, often these instances of fraud, I mean, you assume it's going to be, unfortunately, it's often family and it's not really a professional approach. It's just more of a trusted somebody who takes advantage. But the reality is these days that there are legitimately professional organizations, professional thief organizations who will come across as totally legit and be, looking for you to cut a check for whatever reason. So before you do that, consult as many people that you do know and trust as you possibly can.
That's a good point about family fraud. I mean, there's always a nephew, even a son or daughter will convince a parent to overgive to them and do something for them where they, not doing for the others.
Yeah, and it did just remind me of instances as well, and not just that. I, in my own family, I saw this not that long ago, where somebody named another family member a power of attorney, or a joint account owner on their account, thinking that it would make things easier, if they needed somebody to step in for them, et cetera, which it does. But if the wrong person or that person's significant other then potentially has unlimited access to those assets.
Yeah. It's a very dangerous area. Number 7 on our list, which is really kind of like top of our conversation, probably not top of every one of our listeners' conversations, but it's definitely out there. Tax rate risk in retirement. I think that's a big one. Seth, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not uncommon to have this idea out there. It's pretty prevalent to say that, hey, I'm paying more in taxes right now, and I'm in my peak earning years. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm, putting everything over into my 401k, trying to minimize these taxes that I'm paying today versus when I retire, right? And that future tax rate being lower potentially than what I'm experiencing or having right now. And I think right now is a very great example for anybody that's paying taxes, which is probably everybody, that we're in a fairly low taxability place. We're paying some of the lowest taxes that we've ever experienced in any of our lifetime. Well, the future is probably not going to be at this tax rate or lower, right? It's probably going to wind up being higher. Now, whether or not the income that you're taking in retirement is qualified to be taxed at whatever those rates are or not, that's debatable, right? This is something that we just don't know. But the likelihood is that everybody saving into these 401ks and everything else, or the IRAs, are going to experience something that they just didn't plan for, which is actually paying more in taxes in retirement than they did even through peak earning years. And this is a conversation we have regularly, is how do we make sure to protect you or diversify you in different ways so that you don't necessarily have to just be at the whim of the government.
I think, Seth, one of the things, and Tony, you and I were talking about this today with a client case, is just right now tax rates are so low. Like even if you jump to a higher tax bracket, we were talking about, you got the 10%, you got the 12%, then you got the 22, and then you got the 24. And I mean, you're going up into the, 24%. You're looking at, well into the $200,000 range. And I mean, if you're in your 40s, maybe even 50s, doing a Roth conversion right now is probably like earmarked for, you got to do it. Because I mean, if you're 40 years old and you have $100,000 and you Roth convert it, and let's say you're in the 22% tax bracket, yeah, you're going to pay $22,000 on a $100,000 conversion out of pocket, separate from that $100,000. But that $100,000 in 10 years at 7.2% is going to double, right? So that's going to be $200,000. And then 10 years later, if you're now 60, you did another 7.2%, you're going to double again. That means you're at 400. That $400,000, you would have totally been taxed only 22%. I mean, that's significantly better than paying 22% on $400,000 20 years from now.
Right, and that 22, as you said, on the 400, actually only, I think we averaged it out to is about 5%.
Right, and so, yeah, I mean, you can do the math and get really, technical and say, well, if I had an IRA and I didn't have to pay that $22,000 in taxes. It would be worth more than $400 and stuff like that. But the truth is what happens if all of that $400 you're now paying at a 50 or 60% bracket? Because you have no idea. And with $10 trillion potentially on the table, 7 now, maybe another $3.5 trillion in additional debt. I mean, our government's on a straight line to a 50, 60% tax bracket just to pay for everything. I mean, that's a real fear. And if you're not concerned about that in your retirement over the next 20 or 30 years, where you can't combat inflation or taxes or interest rate risk with a job and just your retirement funds, you got a whole different story going on.
We're going to skip into this next one because we're so happy that we do that. And it's Social Security income risk. We're going to start running out of time, so let's get it out there.
Yeah. Well, I think that these two, Seth, we've talked about them, Social Security income risk, and number 9 is pension risk, and they fall in the same. Do you want to take that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar style of income. It's, money that was either put away on your behalf or you'd earned and was withheld over time, and you choose to retire and then you start to receive income, right? So the risk associated with those things is a couple-fold, driven with interest rates, cost of living adjustments, how inflation impacts you, and then, as usual, there's some regulation. I know Ben liked to talk about this one, but
yeah, we did a whole show on the Pension Reform Act where people started, collecting their pension in retirement, and then, the pension program applied to the government, and we did a whole show on this. The 2014 Obama Pension Reform Act allowed them to lower the pension payouts of people who are already retired. So how many people with, 38% of America retiring over, from the last 20 to this 20 years coming up are going to be demanding their money from their pension programs that are just going to break the bank on these things. And they're going to say, hey, listen, we can't afford. It's just a matter of time before it's a single employer pension reduction. And if you have a pension and then you're counting on that for retirement, you should call us and go through the numbers, because there's other solutions that might be able to solve your income problem.
You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And when we come back, we're going to wrap this show up with a few of these items that we think are so critical. And actually, we're glad that you stuck around, because this is some of the best stuff that you're going to get today. We'll be right back. Folks, it is so much fun for us to bring you Money on Tap. My name is Seth Krussman, and I am one of the hosts here at Money on Tap. I'm also a financial planner. That's what we do. That's what Ben and I do. And the fun part is we get to have this radio show. We talk about important things that we think you need to listen to and be aware of to help raise the bar as far as your financial literacy. It's a big part of what we're trying to do here. The other thing that we're doing here as well, as financial planners, we are welcoming you to come and call us and to join us at Brayshaw Financial Group. Experience what complete wealth management looks like. Let's take a look at all sides of the issue, get a three-dimensional perspective, and put a plan around your next step. It's so critical. And so many people just leave this part out, and then they find out later, oh, if I only would have known. Hey, don't let that be your story. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. If you have $250,000 of investable assets today, our plan is free to you. We think it's important for you to know the facts and have a playbook so you can have a successful retirement. Give us a call at 855-226-8551. Thanks for listening.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. So we've been talking about the 12 of them, count them, biggest pitfalls in retirement. And we're going to head directly into number 10 here, which is withdrawal risk. Withdrawal risk.
Withdrawal risk.
Yes, withdrawal risk.
Were you cheering for football or playing football? That might be a little CTE kicking in there or something.
Seth and his pom-poms. All right. Okay. Withdrawal risk. I mean, this is one of those core items. I mean, I think when I think of withdrawal risk, and we were talking about this item and the idea that people don't take their money out of retirement either in a healthy way or either in a controlled, mechanical way. Like, hey, I need $20,000. Send me a check. Oh, next month I need $15,000. Oh, now I need $50,000. I'm buying a car. There's no real thought to the withdrawals, and then all of a sudden, they find themselves in a hole. That's kind of the uncontrolled, and there's people we meet like that, and they just really need a regimen. But the truth is that when you take money out of your retirement, you should schedule it. It should be automatic, because when you need your money, the market's down almost every time.
Yeah, we talk about the concept of dollar cost averaging on the growth phase of it, right? So when you put the money away for retirement, do it regularly so you're not effectively timing the market, and you're buying, on the same date, 1 day per month over 12 months. You can average out what's happening in the market. Well, the same thing on the backside when you're withdrawing. Average it out. Do it regularly. Leave the money in your account if it's excess. Spend it down from there. And when you do need those emergency withdrawals, talk to us. Maybe it's not such an impending emergency. We need to do it today. Maybe we can counsel you around market conditions and say, hey, listen, let's just wait for a better opportunity. We'll be more efficient.
And we do that. I'm a stickler about this. When we get money, we put in protected cash. We look for intentional times to deliver those funds into investments. If you're already invested in the market, we're doing a lateral shift, that's different. But if you're taking new cash, we want to be intentional about how it's invested. And it just doesn't all go in at once.
Right. And that along with a retirement budget and what you're going to do in retirement actually gives you the opportunity to actually participate and take care of those items that you really planned on doing throughout your retirement. If you have no structure, if you have no plan, a lot of times it's very difficult to actually maybe do one of those bucket list items or the annual trip or something like that, because you're not sure if you can afford it. And doing it this way gives you that opportunity to make it just part of your budget, your monthly expenses.
Number 11 is a health risk, and we understand there's just a lot of the time. How do you combat that? How do you prepare for that? And it will eventually, a lot of the time, eat up estates if people have not done the long-term care planning and really done the work necessary to be okay with this. Number 12. Sequence of returns, and this is one of those that their eyes roll back, like what in the world are you talking about? Sequence of returns and this risk, but we love it as financial planners. We get an opportunity to really help you retire successfully. And first of all, if you're not getting this one right here, right away, go to our website, because we have some great videos for you to help support your education and understanding of how these scenarios play out in retirement. But this one right here is one of the biggest that people just don't understand, and we don't expect you to, but it is a detriment for so many people around their retirement, because they expect the market to just keep charging ahead at 10%. Just like my brother or sister that retired 3 years ago has gotten in their portfolio. But what happens in retirement is that if you retire and the market goes down and you're still pulling funds or money out of the market as it's going down, you need a boatload of returns. And I do mean that, a boatload of returns to get you back to par. And if that doesn't happen, you're going to experience a sequence of returns in your retirement that's going to ultimately leave you completely flat.
Yeah,
it's not unable to retire.
This is definitely the most important item, I think, because it's an uncontrollable factor. It's something you can't prepare for. If the market's down during the first few years versus up, it totally changes the outcome, even if you're doing exactly what everyone else is doing. The video we have on this on our website, go to resources, go down to retirement roadblocks. It is the first video right there. Click on that. If you have never watched or heard or gone through this, this will change your entire perspective on retirement. So this is definitely a necessity. Go to www.brayshawfinancial.com or www.yourmoneyontap.com. click on resources, go to retirement roadblocks, first drop down, first video, sequence of returns, click play, and then call us.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, simple math, a lot of people will say, well, if this year, if the market's down 20%, well, next year, the market will be up 20%. That will not bring you back to whole. You need the market to do closer to 40 that next year to get you back just to where you were.
That's a boatload, folks.
Yeah. And the thing is people don't realize that they have one chance to retire successfully. And in an up market, everything's going to work out. A down market, it doesn't. And people don't understand that you could have if your first 3 years are down, it almost sent your entire portfolio to a catastrophe in retirement. And right now, folks, we're at an all-time high. What's the likelihood of us having a pullback of 3 years over the next 5? I would say a lot higher than not. So health risks, tax rates, all that stuff we can work with and so forth. But when the market's down, if you're not combating the downside of the market in your portfolio, you're really, really in trouble. So
yeah, the challenge to this is that it's the exact opposite that you've been told all the years you were in the accumulation phase by your advisors, which is don't worry when the market's down because you're contributing. So it actually can work out to your benefit because you're buying into the market at lows. But as everybody else has mentioned, now you're withdrawing from lows, which is just compounding that negative effect on your portfolio.
Right, exactly. I think we have the baker's dozen. We have one item here that's not a financial thing, and Dan and I were talking about this, and this is something. Dan, I want you to start off with this thing. I think this is good.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much fear out there, and listening to a show like this might instill a little bit of that in you. And that's not entirely the point, but one of the things that can be a less than successful retirement for you is for people who underlive their wealth. You don't want to have the situation arise either where you've spent a career and a lifetime accumulating, and when you get into that retirement phase, you're so fearful of all of these 12 points that we just mentioned that you don't take any time to enjoy it.
I agree. I think we meet with people that are just running scared for all the reasons we talked about, and there is prudence and there is relevance to that. But with really good planning, I mean, with good planning and good forethought, you can mitigate most of these, and we can get to the point where you could really live within your wealth and not underlive, not feel like you're sacrificing and suffering and not enjoying things the way your friends are or the people next door, like they're doing this trip or that trip. And I just want to do one trip. I just want to go one place. I just want to visit my daughter or my granddaughter. I feel like I can never see him. Whatever that story is, sitting down with somebody doing a plan to shore that up is literally the focus of why you're retiring. So don't do it to the point where you just die with a bunch of money and you never poured into people and enjoyed your life.
Yeah, gift while you're alive, if that's what you're looking for. See it. See what your contributions have made to the lives of the people you care about most.
Thank you. You've been listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We've enjoyed the show today. We've been grateful for you for joining us. We thank you for calling us and giving us an opportunity to speak into your life and be trusted advisors with you. That's something we hold really sacred, and we want to appreciate you for that. So thank you so much. And we just also want to appreciate you for allowing us to be who we are and have fun with what we do on a daily basis, which is financial planning. You can also find us at Facebook. We're at /3D Investing. We're also on Twitter at BFG_LLC. And as always, you can also find us at yourmoneyontap.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for liking our podcast. We appreciate you, and we can't wait to make it a great day and a great life with you here at Money on Tap.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. yields. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.
Well, bye.